Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Ultrascape podcast. I'm Becky Waters and I'm joined by my co-host Josh. How you doing, Josh?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. Keen to hear a bit more about your prep for TCR though.
Oh, it's chaos, to be honest. I've got a bike now. What are we now? As we record, we're just over a week to go, and I'm still yet to ride the bike. But essentially, it's basically the same bike as I rode back in 2015. So the newer version. So it should be all right. Famous last words.
Yeah, it'll do you well. No one ever says that you need to test your equipment well before an event.
No, to be honest, I'm more worried about cocking up the route. Or the ferry timetable, any of the other factors that you actually have to be organised with. So yeah, it's coming quick.
We'll get a little more into detail about what you just said there in a TCR preview with one of the members of staff at Lost Dot, David Ayre. But before that, we'll have a bit of a recap on some record attempts, some races, and a quick preview on some upcoming races. But before that, Josh is going to talk about the people who make the podcast possible.
So as always, a big thank you to Redshift. They've been making this happen from the off. So a big thanks to Redshift there. I've done something controversial, Becky. I put the the big drop bar grips, the big rubber grips. I put them on my semi-aero bars on my new Mason. So I can claim it's like an aerofoil or something to make it go faster, but actually it's just because my hands are old now and I don't want them to go numb. So yeah, using oversized grips on a road bike, nothing wrong with it, just putting it out there. But they're the Redshift ones, and we've got discount from Redshift. So I'll put the link on screen as always. So thanks to those guys. And today's episode sponsor, Albion. As always, we've got the 15% discount code, and yeah, I'm making decisions about how much or how little Albion kit to take with me on the TCR, because as we'll come on to shortly, it's horrendously cold in Norway at the moment, and probably horrendously hot in the rest of Europe. So got to figure that one out. So thanks to Albion for hopefully keeping me warm or cool, depending on conditions. And I've also put together another zine. I've not shown you this yet, Becky.
I know, I haven't seen this.
That's the church at the top of the first pass on Hellenic Mountain Race, which is pretty cool. And as you can see, it says edition number 3. It's actually edition number 2, but I cocked it up. So yeah, extra limited. But those are out. There's some photos from the sort of the first half this year, and yeah, I'll put the link up to all of those. But I'm going away for TCR, so if you get it in before Wednesday next week, I'll send it before I go. If not, you'll have to wait till August. So there we go.
We move on to the next part of the podcast. We'll have a little recap on some of the record attempts. I feel like we've said this every episode. There are more records.
I know.
Record
Lots
attempts
at the moment.
and successful records. Starting with Lael, which wasn't a successful record attempt for her. She was going around the world, fully supported after the overall round the world records. That was Mark Beaumont's. But she stopped after 3,000 miles just outside of Paris, citing the heat as her reason to stop, as it was touching 48 degrees. And that was actually one of the more northern parts of her route after Paris. She would have continued further north into northern Germany, but then south again into Bulgaria. And as Josh, I'm sure we'll find out, it only gets warmer.
Yeah. I mean, it's daft at the moment. I'm trying to adapt for this heat, like riding around in my rain jacket in 30 degrees, and it kind of works though. Can't get hot enough now. But we did talk about Lael last time with Justinas. Like Justinas knows Lael and Rue quite well, and I think it sounded like Lael was on the back foot from the off, really, didn't it? She was running around beforehand, just trying to get the thing together. There's a lot of funding to pull together, and then she got pretty bad weather in North America. Torrential rain, winds weren't helping, and then suddenly to nearly 40 degrees in Europe. So I think she was behind a bit, and yeah, I think she probably made a sensible decision to stop, really. But yeah, we do have some news though, that she's racing the Pan Celtic race instead. There was talk of her doing TCR, but yeah, probably not sensible, really. She's basically just done a TCR. That's a crazy thing. Like it sounds like a big failure. When you say, "Oh, I only got to Paris," but she's done 3,000 miles. That's basically the TCR route for this year, 3,000 miles. So it's no small undertaking, even though that she didn't do the complete route. So yeah,
but she's clearly not satisfied. So yeah, she'll be at Pan Celtic this weekend.
Yeah, and I wonder if she'll have another go or not. I suppose maybe we'll have to try and ask her at some point and see. So yeah, so that was Lael's record. What else happened, Beccy?
We had Sarah Ruggin's successful record attempt of the kind of Trans-Europe, starting in the south to the north, finishing in Nordkap. She finished in 13 days, 20 hours, 27 minutes, which was almost exactly 3 days ahead of the previous record holder, Ian Walker. So Sarah now holds the overall record. She, while doing so, provisionally took the women's 7-day record as well, which I thought was quite it wasn't a priority for her. I don't know if she was even considering it much, but I think it's just a bit of a byproduct of the Europe record. She bettered Alexandra's Meixner's record from 2021 by quick maths, it's about 100, just over 100 kilometers. And it's also the same record that we've talked about quite a few times this year. Daniel Steinhauser took the overall record in 3,850 kilometers, and he took it from Alex McCormack, who set it only a couple of weeks before. So it's been quite a hotly contested distance this year. I hadn't heard of it really until Alex did it.
I think it was, you'd hear it every now and again, but I think the bar's been raised a bit overall on that, hasn't it? And I think I heard, I think it must have been Mark Beaumont's podcast talking to Sarah, and I think they acknowledged that maybe something like the 7-day record could be a possibility, but that was kind of like a byproduct of the actual record itself. And it sounds like she basically pretty much held that pace for the rest of it as well. And it wasn't easy. I think there was some pretty bad weather through Northern Europe and road closures and diversions because of roadworks. So yeah, a bit of a logistical kind of record as much as anything there.
The next question, I guess, is, will she go for the round the world? Or even when does she go for the round the world? It feels like such an inevitable attempt for her, especially now Lael hasn't set a round the world record.
Yeah,
a fully supported round the world record. I imagine it must be really tempting for Sarah.
Must be on her mind. The way she did this record too, fully supported with like the camper van, all the logistics behind it. I mean, it's I'm not going to say it's over the top for doing that distance, but it struck you that it was potentially like a dry run for something. And I think even when we talked about, like last year when we were talking about the UK, was it Joggler Jog, wasn't it? We kind of said, oh, maybe there's around the world, but there needs to be something else in the middle. And I think this may well have been that something else in the middle. So yeah, I guess we'll see. But I think one of the reasons maybe Lael not failed, but probably one of the big factors in making it very stressful before the start was making it happen. Because it's very expensive to you need like 3 or 4 crews, you need to fly them around the world, you need to hire camper vans point to point, which is always extremely expensive, plus the costs of all these things and all the logistics and the planning. I mean, Mark Beaumont basically had a whole, like, he employed people to do that. He had the big money, the corporate money, and was able to like basically have a HQ with people working like 24/7, but like a full-time job for a number of with a year leading up to it. So that's almost the level you need to do it. And it strikes me that Sarah's very good at that stuff, and she doesn't start something that she's not going to finish. And also, like on a side note, if you want to hear more about Sarah, it's Mark Beaumont's endurance podcast. There was actually a really good conversation about that and Sarah's history. And like I said, it sounds like if she's going to do something, she's going to do it properly. So I'd imagine that doing something properly is potentially a around the world style effort. So yeah, I guess watch this space. Elsewhere, closer to home. Well, actually, no, not close to home. Probably about the same as Sarah's, to be fair. Mark Kowalski. Probably, I think we can consider a friend of the podcast. We seem to bump into Mark quite a lot, or at least I do, and we did at the Bespoke show. Mark has taken on the record for the most countries visited in 7 days, and it was 21 countries, which was 2,798.59. Is a 0.59 the key thing here? I don't know. It's very precise.
Well, that's clearly a copy and paste.
Becky's in charge of stats. I wouldn't be that accurate, I can tell you. And he averaged, here we go, 404.25 kilometres a day. But yeah, so Mark took the record. He was actually chasing quite hard. So he was 5k behind the record with 255. Is that exactly 255?
That was just when I looked at it, when I was doing the prep for this episode, but that was quite a few weeks ago now.
With 255.25k to go. Mark was behind and chasing the record. But yeah, we both know Mark, and he's a great guy. So big congratulations to Mark. And Becky's now going to tell us all the countries that he visited.
So it's 21 countries. It sounds like a TCR. If it sounds familiar, it probably is.
I mean, to be honest, that has basically been a TCR. If you added like the first few countries in a different order, starting in Belgium or somewhere, it's essentially a TCR.
So he started in the Netherlands. Following that, he hit Germany, Belgium, Luxembourg, France, Switzerland, Austria, Liechtenstein, Italy, Czechia, Slovakia, Hungary, Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Serbia, Montenegro, Kosovo, Albania, North Macedonia, Bulgaria, and Greece.
I mean, that's not far off the second half of my TCR route, to be fair. So that was Mark. And well done, world record holder. So we should probably round up the Tour Divide. It seems like a long time ago, which was only a couple of weeks now. But if you were listening to the daily updates that I was doing, you probably know all of this already, but we'll run through sort of the headline stats. So it was won overall by Victor Bezzoni. So that was a new record as well, new overall record, outright record. It was faster than Robin's time last year. There's no fire diversions, which is the only reason Robin didn't have the record from last year. So it makes things nice and simple next time, not having to explain why Robin didn't officially have the record. So Victor set the time of 11 days, 8 hours, 37 minutes, which is absolutely ridiculously fast. I think it was just a perfect year. I didn't see that there could be a more perfect year than last year for Robin, but this was it. It sounds like. Everyone I've spoken to who was on the race said it was just mind-bogglingly fast. And in actual fact, the top three were all ahead of that record time of Mike Hall from 2016, which was unbreakable for years and years and years. And now we've got like the top three going under that time, which is mad. So Victor took the overall win. Megan Hakkinen, again, another record-breaking time. So she's set the fastest time for a woman down the Tour Divide, and this is it was previously held on a individual time trial. So again, this makes it nice and convenient that it's just on the grander part. So 14 days, 10 hours, 12 minutes. Lightning fast from Megan. The podium was rounded out by Lawrence Ten Dam and Angus Young, who mentioned were both under Mike Hall's time. So 13 days, 7 hours, 40 minutes for Lawrence. Angus was 13 days, 18 hours and 13 minutes. But yeah, it's crazy. We would have been talking about that, like the fastest time ever, not that many years ago. And Victor was like a couple of days ahead almost. It's incredible how fast he went. The top 10, I'll just round out the top 10. So fourth was Mikko Keino, fifth, Dries van der Klei, sixth, Javier Chiriboga, seventh, Felix Labage. Now he also set a new single speed record. So I think it just shows you that how fast this year was. I mean, the level's going up without a doubt, but the combination of a stronger, I guess, more educated, faster field of riders and those conditions meant that all the records got broken. So Felix set a new single speed record this is ridiculous. 14 days, 7 hours, 46 minutes. Again, that would have won the Tour Divide outright not that many years ago, just to put things in perspective. Great ride from Felix. And then in eighth was Megan Hakkinen, who we already mentioned. Ninth, Yossi Barak, and 10th, Brian Ilander. The women's podium, I mean, the women's race was kind of a bit it's a bit dramatic at the end there. So Alyssa Secreto was lead. Well, she was in second position, a fair few days behind Megan, but she got hit by a car with 60k to go. She ended up getting airlifted out and had some pretty severe injuries, but it sounds like she's in stable condition. But really unfortunate. And we'll send her her best anyway. No one wants to hear that. However, carry on, Becky.
I was going to say there is actually a fundraiser for her. I think a lot of Europeans are stomach turns at the thought of American healthcare, and I think the bill is sizable. So if anyone was interested,
we'll put the link up. But it was substantial numbers of surgeries and fractures and lacerated organs and the whole works. So we'll send Alyssa our best, and the organisers actually, I mean, she was basically finished, and they've basically rounded her time up and given her a finish time as well, because she was basically done in Tour Divide terms. So 20 days, 2 hours 49 minutes. And then the next two riders over, I mean, the next two riders to finish, Leigh Goldsign finished in 20 days, 18 hours, 59 minutes, and Torin Lackman, 20 days, 22 hours and 36 minutes. So they were all really close together as well at the end there. So it was actually quite a tight race.
I've only just picked up really that Megan was 6 to 6.5 days ahead of Alyssa, which is astonishing.
She was flying.
That is such a huge gap.
Yeah, and she put a real lot of work in as well. I mean, I think she was training. I don't know if she's been training full time all year, but she was definitely putting in big hours. Spent like the last month in Colorado, up at altitude and stuff. And well, Megan is no stranger to winning the Tour Divide or some of the toughest races out there. So yeah, she's put in the work and she's got the result. So yeah, good to see. Good on Megan. And I think we'll probably see her later in the year as well. I think she might be doing the Taurus mountain race. So yeah, but we'll leave that for another podcast.
Have you mentioned about the Triple Crown Challenge?
No, but you are about to do so, aren't you?
Sorry, clearly wasn't paying attention. I was just boggled at Megan's lead. The Tour Divide was the first event of the Triple Crown Challenge, with the Colorado Trail Race and the Arizona Trail Race coming up later in the year. Karen Pocock and Alex McCormack both started the Tour Divide with the intention of doing the challenge, but they both scratched from the Tour Divide. They are on the start list for the Colorado Trail Race, which starts on August the 2nd, so it looks like they're still going. But they're out of the Triple Crown Challenge, which leaves Javier Chiriboga and Brian Olander tackling the challenge. Javier was 6th and Brian 10th at the Tour Divide, so there's a chance we see a good contention for a fast time on the challenge overall.
Yeah, definitely. Elsewhere, or close to home, it's been the Bright Midnight as well. We had Justinas on the last pod. What can you tell us about the Bright Midnight, Becky?
I had a quick look through the Instagram and the commentary on
Grim,
Watcher. It took me a couple of minutes to think, have I seen anyone not wearing leg warmers or rain trousers? And there's only a couple of photos where you see people's legs actually out. So it doesn't look like a race from June. It looks like a March race.
Yeah. A lot of people scratched because of the conditions. It was, well, as Justina says, it was the green winter, which is worse than the white winter in Norway.
Okay. That sounds like a real Scandinavian term, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So it was, as you've probably picked up, it was very cold, wet and quite exposed in parts, and to top it all off towards the end of the race, the wind really picked up. So anyone who finished made an excellent effort. It sounds like there wasn't anything easy about Bright Midnight. The winner was Philip Eidschein, who backed up his 2025 win in a total time of 2 days, 8 hours and 15 minutes. His total time was about, I think, 5 hours slower than last year, and the course is the same, so you can use that as a bit of a
probably
comparison.
Isn't it?
He had a 6-hour lead over Benedict Borsos, who came in second. Elsewhere in the top 5, actually, Anna Koffler came in 5th overall and first woman in, I haven't done the maths here, I've put 70 hours and 35 minutes, so whatever that converts to in days and hours.
Still pretty damn fast.
And that kind of rounds up the wrap-ups that we've done. We'll talk a little bit about the Pan Celtic very quickly. Is the upcoming race we have as a preview. It's the Pan Celtic's had 5 editions, but it had a year off last year. It was an intentional hiatus to give them a bit of a break for a new chapter. They're quite a storytelling bunch, and I think they lean on the kind of literacy side of of the event. So that's starting this Sunday. That's Sunday, the 12th of July. So it looks very similar to how it always has, but it's a little bit different. There's a shorter event than there used to be. So there's an intro, a short, and a full, but they've typically only had the short and the full. Names to look out for, most notably, is probably Lael Wilcox. I think she'll attract a lot of dot watchers, and a Christoph Dijkmans, who Josh can probably talk a little more about, as I think you've raced him.
Well, it's just very fast and very Belgian. So it's just like most of the Belgian guys I know, they're just going to smash in a bike race. Christos won quite a lot of stuff. He's won like Hellenic, things like that. So yeah, really, really strong rider, and definitely be one to watch there, I suspect. So yeah, so that's sort of a quick overview of what's been going on, and now into the bulk of the episode. It's going to be quite a long one. So we had a really good chat with David Ayre from the Transcontinental Race. So this is going to be our Transcontinental Race preview. So the race starts in Trondheim in Norway. So maybe the bright midnight weather conditions could be a clue as to what's going to come. And finishes down in the south of Greece in Kalamata, and it's looking like it's going to be one of the longest ones ever. So yeah, we recorded this last week with David, so hence yeah, I'm not going to get comments here, by the way. If you're watching on YouTube, yes, I have had a haircut, so that's why my hair has suddenly grown in the next few seconds. So yeah, without further ado, let's get over to the chat we had with David last week. So on to the next part of the podcast, and well, we're going to be previewing the Transcontinental Race, which, if you're listening to it, will be starting in a couple of days' time. And we're joined by the race director. And are you the leader of Lost Dot?
A leader, maybe. One of a small team of 5 that helps to put these races together.
So yeah, this is David Ayre, and this year you are directing TCR. So welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much for having me.
Just as a question there, how does it work with directing races within like the organisation? Because you all kind of take it in turns, don't you? Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's right. So there are 3 of us who are race organisers. So we either have the role of race director or race coordinator, depending on different editions of the race. And we rotate those between the 3 of us. So this year it's me as race director for TCR and my colleague Hannah as the race coordinator. Hannah was race director for the inaugural edition of Lost Dot 101 earlier this year, with Andrew as the coordinator. And then for the Trans-Pyrenees later this year, Andrew's the race director and I'm the coordinator. So it's like that little kind of revolving door between the 3 of us. So we each do 2 races a year and have one as a bit of a rest as well.
I can imagine it's pretty intense, though. Even just following small events, doing like maybe podcast. Well, myself and Becky flied further east once, and that's just exhausting. That was only 2 days, so I can imagine the scale of TCR and the amount of riders now. I mean, I've been flicking through the start list, and it's nearly 400, isn't it, with pairs and everyone?
Yeah, I think just over 400 it'll be by the time the race rolls out of Trondheim.
We should probably talk about this year's race anyway. And yeah, it's a bit of a different race, isn't it? What's the kind of? Well, do you want to give us an overview and I guess start with the start?
Yeah, sure. So it is definitely a slightly different race this year. So continuing a bit of a change that started last year with the race starting out in Santiago de Compostela. And this year we have turned the race again. So this year it's the most northerly start we've ever had. So we are starting in Trondheim in the north of Norway, so just 3 degrees away from the Arctic Circle. And finishing in Kalamata in the south of Greece. So you might be going from 14 degrees at the start to 40 degrees at the finish. So and there's a lot for riders to contend with, but from that start line, riders are going to roll out over a beautiful start parkour out towards a small town called Rumours. So just shy of 200 kilometers of fixed route to get the ball rolling, and really, really beautiful stuff. I think quintessential Norwegian kind of countryside that everyone will be passing through. So for those on the start line who haven't been there before, we could kind of sheep dipping them into what Norway has to offer quite early on. And the first control point is out in Flom, also in Norway, so keeping riders in the same country for the beginning. So it comes fairly early on this year compared to the last couple of years. We've had control points starting a little bit further down the route. But from there, riders have what everyone loves about TCR, a ferry to contend with as well. So this year the ferry is coming a little bit earlier, so it will be a crossing of the Baltic Sea. So riders will have to figure out which of the multitude of options for that crossing they're going to take before they make their way down through Czechia and into the Tatras Mountains From there, we're into more beautiful terrain. So just outside Sarajevo for CP3, Mount Trbojevic, so site of the 1984 Summer Olympics. Really, really beautiful. Quite a unique parkour this year as well, where we have the old bobsled track, which riders will be riding along.
Is it actually down the track itself?
It is indeed.
Because I thought so, because I was looking at it and it looks like there's some kind of path next to it, but then you see loads of photos of and videos of people riding it, and I thought actually that'd be pretty cool to go down there.
Yeah, it's an idea we've toyed with for a number of years, and I'm glad we found the right addition to finally slot that in. So a fairly unique experience to go down that, which will be fun. Then down into Albania, so quite a long way between the parkour and the CP in Albania. So the parkour is kind of in the northeast of the country, and the CP is right down in the south. But these are locations that we've scouted out in previous editions of the Accursed when we spent a lot of time in the country, and it's an area that we all know and love. So really excited for riders to get to experience that. And then continuing that Olympic theme, the finished parkour will start in ancient Olympia in Greece before making its way down to Kalamata, right on the south coast of Greece. So small matter of about 170k and 3,500 meters of climbing for riders, just as the sucker punch right at the end. So just when you think the journey's nearly over, I promise you it's not done. I'll be waiting with a cold beer. Alcoholic and non-alcoholic options are available when anyone rolls into the finish. So yeah, quite a journey.
No, it sounds good. I mean, I'm going myself. I've been digging into this route far too much over the past weeks now, and it's quite exciting. I mean, maybe while we're on the route, how do you go about kind of, I guess, creating and I don't know what the right word is really, coordinating all the checkpoints and the parkour sections to kind of put these races together. Is there a process, or is it just kind of ideas that kind of mold together over time?
Yeah. So we start by all going away with a blank sheet of paper, as myself and Andrew, and in secret from one another, we'll put together what we think a future edition of the race could look like, and then come back to each other and say, this is what I've got in mind. It's, I think, perhaps a testament to how much time we spend with one another that those routes can have quite significant overlap, because we realised that maybe we had a conversation for 30 seconds 6 months ago and we both remembered it and kind of woven it in. But from that, you start to see the shape of a race emerging as well. And straight after TCR, the team hits the road out in what were the race vehicles, they become the recce vehicles. And a couple of weeks are spent out checking out the various different locations that we could use. Sometimes that's a kind of broad area within a country. Sometimes it's a very specific location and figuring out whether that works as a bit of parkour out or as a CP location. Chatting to local business owners, maybe meeting someone from a local council to talk about having the race start there, and kind of hoping that it works in the way that you think it will. Each year we often recce a little bit more than we would ever use in one edition as well. So what we end up with is this kind of big, beautiful map that builds out over time of the places that we've been and our notes about those places. And so it means that if we're kind of perhaps stuck or struggling for something that neatly fits in a future edition, we can go back to that as well and be like, oh, well, when we went there, that was perfect. And actually that had worked with this. And so you have that kind of knowledge bank that we draw on as well. But that's also a process that is informed by riders, ultimately. I think about, for instance, this year, Parkour A in Czechia. So that was brought to our attention when at the finish line of TCR number 10, Tim De Witte, two-time podium finisher of TCR, kind of came up and whispered in my ear, I know about this road that I think could make a really nice parkour. And I was like, email me, Tim. I want to see it. I want photos. And from there, spoke to a couple of others, including Pico, organizer of Race Through Poland, who also knew that road. And then the kind of idea began to emerge. And I think like stuff like that is really nice as well, because as I've mentioned already, we're a small team. We can't cover the entire continent in its entirety all the time. So if someone's ridden somewhere really beautiful that they think is race worthy, we'll always consider it. And I think that's quite a fun little addition to our own kind of research and planning as well.
I find it interesting, having done some of the really, really early ones, that how much more there is now and how kind of, well, it always strikes me as organisers, you are like just informing the route. Probably, well, way more than those early days. There's quite little nuances to it that are forcing you into certain areas and onto certain roads in certain places. And I find it, I mean, just having seen the development, it's quite interesting. And I think it does make for a really good route. And certainly the safety element now, how does that come in with all the banned roads? So for those who maybe aren't familiar, there is it's like a big Google map, isn't it? Where you overlay kind of either roads which are deemed dangerous or not safe enough to ride on, and things like tunnels and, just stuff you can't cycle on. Is that again stuff that has just cropped up over the years and is used to inform routes? Or sometimes, I don't know, sometimes I get the feeling that the roads are perfectly fine to ride on, you just ban it just to make life more difficult. Is that the case, or?
I promise that we're not that kind of malign with our intentions. It is definitely to make it a safer race. That map has existed for years now, and started out quite sparsely populated, but then after each edition of TCR, we survey all of our riders and ask them whether they rode on anything that they found like concerning or potentially dangerous, so that we can consider that. And perhaps when we're out on recce, we'll go and find those bits. Equally, we as a team are often like riding and racing in different places, so come across stuff, always make a note of that, make sure that we're kind of encouraging riders into safer areas. In the CP and parkour locations as well, we also do a lot of work on the routes in and out of those places, so that you can make sure that you don't just have this like really beautiful spot, but that you've got to go down a massive dual carriageway with like a high speed limit or something to get there, and like you don't want to be pushing people into those places where they have to make those sort of choices. So there's a lot of work that goes on in building that out. But this year as well, we brought a new member of the team in. So Andy Dodd joined the team at the start of the year, and his role has really been around like safety and quality as well. So it kind of works with each of us as race directors for each of the editions around a whole host of stuff. So like a lot of contingency planning. For instance, if there's like a freak weather incident and we need to change a parkour or route people around or something like that, like how we work all of that out in the background. He's also done a bit of recce for us. So it was him that went to Norway under cover of darkness, or well, actually not technically cover of darkness, under the cover of TCR last summer. So when the race was on, he went north to Norway as a kind of like silent mission to go and check out those bits for us. But he's also done a lot of work on the banned roads and road safety as well this year. So it's like, I think really like deepened our knowledge base around a lot of that stuff, which can only be a good thing for future editions of the race as well.
Yeah, you can definitely tell looking at the map and sort of overlaying things, and even when you just sort of use the Google Man, like one of the key route planning tools.
Yeah.
And you see stuff and you think, oh yeah, I can see that. I can see that. And certainly like harking back to the good old days, I was terrified in 2015 at times. 14, I kind of, it was the same checkpoint it was Kotor Bay in Montenegro and the finish in Istanbul. And I basically copied my route. And at that time, there wasn't the kind of the banned roads. It was kind of like, well, don't ride through the tunnels or go on the motorway unless you can get away with it. So you ended up riding through the motorway in Turkey, which was actually probably one of the better ones. But yeah, certain roads that I know are now on the banned list. I was young and stupid in 2014, and you kind of get through, and afterwards you think, oh, that was a bit sketchy. But 2015, I was just doing the same route, knowing these roads were coming up, and absolutely terrified. So it certainly feels a lot safer from a rider's point of view, just at the planning stage. Which is only a good thing.
David, I enjoyed your explanation of designing the route. I hadn't really appreciated that it sounds like it's as much of an art as it is a science. There's three of you putting in quite different perspectives, which I imagine is quite harmonising at times. But I wanted to ask you a little bit more about this year's route. It's you mentioned it's the furthest northern start that we have, and it's a massive latitude shift from the north of Norway to Greece, and that obviously brings with it very different climates. But I wondered what other differences you think there'd be between those latitudes.
I think there's a lot more open space the further north you're going. Like it's less urban environment that our riders will be passing through for sure. And there's less kind of hustle and bustle compared to the kind of Western Europe into the Balkans that riders might be more familiar with and expect. It's a much kind of quieter place in a whole host of ways. So I think that'll be quite interesting before you hit the kind of the chaos of, and I mean that in the best possible way, but the chaos of places like Bosnia and Albania, where it's like there's a million things going on at once. So that'll be pretty special. And things like local customs are quite different, like hospitality, opening hours, food that's available. Like you kind of traverse context, cultural, and language barriers over the course of this entire race, and I think that makes it really feel like quite an incredible journey from my perspective. To get to go through all of those places in the same race is pretty unique. So yeah, should be good.
I think it's 12 or 13 countries on my route. So it just goes to show, doesn't it? It's quite a lot, and it's going to be pretty much 3,000 miles. I think it's going to be quite difficult to get much shorter than that. Unless I've totally screwed things up. We'll find out soon. Yeah, is this going to be, do you think, the longest TCR ever in terms of distance?
Yes, it looks like it will be the longest. And so last year was probably just about the longest, and this one's a little bit longer again. This is also the first edition of the race that hasn't had a control point somewhere in the Alps as well. So a bit of a change there. But anyone who's thinking that that means it's going to be a flatter edition is lulling themselves into a false sense of security. I think there's many a slip twixt cup and lip, as my nan used to say. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not exactly the high altitude, but you do have to work quite hard to find flat sections to piece together, and then once you're in the Balkans, that's it. It's the Balkans, which is not flat at all, is it? But great. It's one of the best sections. So that's the route. Becky, should we move on to some of the riders taking part this year?
Yeah, we've got a few names that we've picked out of the start list, and TCR often attracts a lot of the big names, so there were a lot of people that we recognised, but inevitably there'll be people that we haven't picked out. For example, I think a couple of years ago we wouldn't have picked out Victor Bossoni's name before he raced the TCR for the first time. So if you've got any, David, if you have any intel, we and the listeners are all ears. But if we start with the previous winners, you get quite a lot of repeat custom, I think, from people who've already done well at TCR. They don't seem to kind of tick that box and move on to other races. A lot of people come back to TCR. And if we start with last year's women's winner was Jana Kessenheimer. She was last year's and 2024's women's winner. So I presume she's looking for a hat trick. She's going for a win here as well. The next is Robin Jean-Perle. He won last time in 2024 and he was second in 2023, having been 8th a few years ago. So he'd kind of slowly moved up the rankings very steadily, very assuredly over a couple of years. He's also won the Tour de Fidesz at Mountain Race. And the final previous winner we've picked out is Christoph Strasser. He's also won twice before, in 22 and 23. He was second in 2024 to Robin Jean-Perle, and then 5th last year. So he's actually, he's been slipping down the rankings. But he's won Race Across America 6 times. So his traditional background was more supported racing, but he's made a move very successfully into unsupported racing. Off the top of your head, David, do you think the route suits the 3 of those quite well?
I do. I think they'll all approach it quite differently, which is interesting as well. The beautiful thing about TCR is that you have to really balance the kind of tactics and strategy over the course of the whole race, with it being so long and there being so many different kind of features to that as well. And so, yeah, I can see it definitely suiting them. We know Robin likes to go out hard in these races and try and build a lead and maintain it. Christoph, much more consistent, like almost identical distances every day. So longer races tend to suit him pretty well. So this longer edition this year, could this see him roll back the ears a little bit and start to really push into those top 3 places again after finishing just outside of them last year? Jana, as we know, excels in high mountains, but cumulative climbing over this could suit her really well as well. And so kind of keeping fresh as the mountains keep on rolling all the way through the Balkans and into Greece as well. So yeah, I'll be interested to see how they go. But as you mentioned, that is far from the end of the conversation when we look at the kind of strength in depth that is coming for TCR this year. I mean, alongside Jana, you've got the likes of Hélène Fromenty, who was the first woman home at Transpyrenees, one of our other races last year. Incredibly strong performance. Has also raced things like Silk Road in the past as well. So knows how to really manage herself on these tough races. Anna Karlqvist as well, who recently finished as first woman at Race Through Poland, will be joining us on the start line. So I'm sure he's coming into this with some really good form and will be excited and keen to push those around her as much as possible. In the men's field as well, we've got Manu Rudaz, who's finished in the top 5 last year. Martin Moritz, who came second, will be coming back again, hoping, I guess, to take one further step up on that podium and take the win this year. Maxime Magut, who was the overall winner at Transpyrenees last year and has performed really well in a few other races like Tracker and Unbound recently. I think we can see some really interesting different possibilities there. And that's
only just behind Robin there, wasn't he, at Unbound XL? So
yeah, exactly.
Just gives you an idea of the level he's at.
Yeah, definitely. And then we've got Tim de Witte, who's finished 3rd twice at TCR before.
The route master.
Yeah. as a team, we like to talk about Tim playing like 5D chess, managed himself so well over both of those races and come away with a podium finish. One of my abiding memories of TCR number 10 was Abdullah Zainab, who was in third, coming to the bottom of a set of steps, which he had to walk up to get to the CP right at the end of the finish line. And we'd realised that he'd missed a little bit of the route. And on the finish parkour, so I went down to meet him and tell him that he needed to go and ride that so he could actually officially finish the race. And as I was having that conversation with him, Tim DeVitter came flying down the coastline, threw his bike over his shoulder and sprinted up the steps past me and Abdullah. And we both watched him go up those steps. And I'll swear here, so you can maybe edit this out, but Abdullah just looked at me and went, "That was fucking amazing." I was like, well, I mean, that's one way to take it, like with good grace, and also just like, how on earth are you running like that after all of this riding?
I remember having dinner with him just randomly after, it must have been Atlas a couple of years back, and he just went into incredible detail about how he plans the routes and how he's like done his own programming to kind of check all the different routes and wind conditions, and it's there's so much. I mean, I can't even fathom going into that much depth. So yeah, normally Tim is the man to beat in terms of planning at least, and well, his legs deliver as well, don't they?
I remember you saying that about him, Josh, and I picture him being, because one thing I think that a lot of racers would like is some kind of alarm when a racer around them has started moving again. And I just imagine Tim building that to himself. So his alarm goes off when the rider ahead of him has started moving again.
I'm pretty sure it's on a different level to most of us mere mortals when it comes to route planning and the kind of all the factors. I'm still on the very basics at the moment. So, I mean, you've done a really great job of covering a lot of the riders there. So, yeah, I think maybe we'll go on to some of the newcomers who you've mentioned. Obviously, Max, we talked about. Helen, and yeah, she's super strong. Although I think she did have a bit of an injury, didn't she? So hopefully she's healing up and be good to go, because it'd be a shame if she wasn't able to take part. Another couple of really strong women who haven't raced TCR yet. We've got Camille Elbissa, who was third at the Atlas Mountain Race back in February. She looks like she's really kind of developing in these longer races. And Nicole van Battenberg, she was third in the Unknown Race, third at Two Volcano Sprint, won things like Race Around Rwanda. I mean, it's good. The sport has grown as a whole, isn't it? Which maybe we'll touch on later, but certainly the women's field has got so much strength and depth. Like I can remember, like the early days, you'd be lucky if you had one or two women racing, but now it's like they're pushing the guys and, well in the top 10.
Another woman who we haven't mentioned, David, and I wonder if you could just talk us through how she's lining up, is Lael Wilcox.
Lael isn't lining up, I'm afraid.
Is she not?
No.
That's a shame.
No, Lael was considering, she'd been talking to us about maybe joining us on the start line after she had to pull out of her round the world record attempt. But I think trying to plan a near 5,000 kilometre route when you're already pretty fatigued and at very short notice was just perhaps one hurdle too far. So I might be breaking some news here, and I hope the organiser of this other race doesn't mind. I imagine they'll be pleased, but I believe she's off to race Pan Celtic instead.
Cool.
Okay.
That'd be great for those guys.
Slightly less planning, but obviously can just take great form into it from all of the riding she's been doing. So,
and probably less of a physical undertaking as well, because I mean, I think I just got the impression Lael was just totally exhausted before she'd even started the around the world attempt. It looked like it was a lot of stress just getting to the start line. So maybe doing a 3,000 odd mile race off the back of that probably isn't the best. It's a shame because Lael does great stuff for the sport as a whole, and really elevates that women's field as well. But so yeah, breaking news there.
Just quickly, I would definitely agree with like the amazing growth that we're seeing in the kind of women's side of the sport. But obviously, put a lot of work in last year with the 100 TCR women campaign. Saw the largest field we've ever had, 79 riders. That's come down a little bit this year. We're expecting like 63, I think it is, on the start line for this year, but without like the concerted campaign that we had last year. Things like Lost Dot 101, which we ran earlier this year, which had over 140 women on the start line in its inaugural edition, is testament to the fact that there's this like huge desire to race and build that experience, which is great. HT 550 getting to 50-50 for the men's and women's field for the first time. Largest field we've ever had at Atlas Mountain Race. That you can really see that there's been a huge shift in probably like the past 5 years now with that sort of stuff, and long may it continue, really.
And do you see, obviously Lost Dot 101 is your new race that was in March, wasn't it? Or was it May? I can't
May.
remember. May. Do you kind of envisage seeing a lot of the riders who maybe dip their toes in the water there going on to maybe the next edition of TCR or future TCRs? Is that the aim?
I mean, that's the hope. I hope that they just go on to enjoy riding and racing their bikes and taking that kind of increased sense of self-confidence that you get from taking part in these sorts of events into every walk of life. We'd love to see them join us on the start line at TCR. And I guess that by providing races which give them a chance to join us in like a safe, welcoming, inclusive environment to get their first taste of that, because there were a lot of first-time racers there for the 101. That can only be a good thing for the future. But whether they come to TCR or go and do other great races that are out there, I'm easy about that. I think it's just really cool to see that growth overall.
Yeah, it's only going to be a good thing, isn't it, as we go forward? Well, we've accidentally covered most of our list.
There are a couple of other names I think we should pull out. I'd mentioned Mika Makipa, who I think has finished every other edition of TCR.
Every edition,
and every edition in GC as well. So there's a formidable track record for Miko there for sure.
And we probably can't pin down as a favourite for the win, because normally he makes a point of doing the longest possible route he physically can, and to time it just before the finish party, which was impressive in itself, because normally he times it pretty much spot on, doesn't he?
Yeah. There was that time on TCR number 9 when he was going to Meteora and he thought he was going to miss a time cut for the first time and was absolutely hammering it to CP4, so the penultimate stop on the race. And then he got there and realised he'd moved from CEST to EEST, so he actually had an hour longer than he realised. And had made it with loads of time, but had just done like a time trial for the last 40k to get there. So hopefully if he's listening, Miko, you'd remember that we finish in Greece and you've got that extra hour this year.
Yeah.
That always throws you anyway. By the time you get to that part of the world, you have no idea what's going on, like timing or just generally. So yeah, we've also got newcomers. One person we hadn't mentioned yet was Thomas Bouret, and he's got a history with Lost Dot races, second at Trans-Pyrenees last year, but he's also had 3 top 10s at the Atlas Mountain race and a second at Highland Trail 550. So it'd be interesting to see how he goes, and I think this will probably be the longest race he's done. I can imagine, given his attention to details, he'll be doing very good planning on his route. So yeah, and that's a huge part of it, isn't it? Elsewhere, we've got our favourite, Becky, Robert Muller.
Robert Muller. Oh, he's one of my favourite dots to watch. The stories that come out of every race with him in are always gold. He's referred to as bin man by someone else, by a friend of mine, because he slept in a bin at 2 Volcano Sprint. And the photos and the stories that come from him seem incredible, regardless of how good he is. He was 5th at TCR in 2023, and I think he just brings so much jazz and just so much entertainment, really.
He's such a character. I think that's it, really, isn't it? I think the characters are part of the sport.
Yeah.
So yeah, looking forward to seeing him racing again. He covered Manuel, didn't we? Also, Lucas Strittmatter. He was 8th in 2024, I think, and it's been 4th at TPR. So again, he's one of, I think probably now this next sort of group of riders are riders that have maybe had quite a bit of experience at TCR and maybe either scratched or finished within a top 10. So I think experience is key, and it's almost at the stage that, you know, there's probably your top favourites. And for maybe like first and second, then there's like probably 10 people that could finish third almost, depending on how things play out on the road. Bosselet, she's finished twice now, I think, and been 6th overall in the women's. So again, that experience builds up. We covered Miko. Nicolas Châtelet was 7th last year, but he went out for an absolute flyer. He was leading early on, wasn't he? Right up there. I remember looking at the dots, knowing that it was his first time, and just looking at it thinking, oh, I think he might have gone too hard. But I think we've all been there and done that at some point.
I think the final rider we'll pick up on is Omar de Felice. He scratched in 2024. He has won races like Trans Am and the Indy Pack, but he's most notably, I would say, 1 year post serious crash. He had a couple of fractured vertebrae, a head injury. There's photos on Instagram of a very bloody helmet and him in a neck brace. And I believe, David, this is his first race back.
Yeah, I know he's done some amazing touring in the meantime, like really beautiful stuff. But yeah, this is him getting back into the sharp stuff, I believe.
So we're willing him well to have come back 1 year post life-changing incident.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it'll be up there as well, is fairly fast. So yeah, so that's kind of, well, that's a brief overview. I mean, it's hard to pull out too many names out of a list of 400, which is incredible, really. Just thinking back to the early days, it was like, I think it's 30 lined up for the first TCR in 2013. So yeah, just goes to show how far this thing has come in, 12 years? It's 12th edition this year, isn't it?
It is. And we end up with still now 3 applicants for every place, which kind of goes to show the demand for taking part in events like this, which is really cool. I think we feel so lucky to still capture the imagination of enough people to want to come and do that. And it does mean that ballot system works pretty hard every year. So like weighted ballots, so if you've volunteered with us before, you get your guaranteed place. If you are from an underrepresented group or a woman, like if you've got the right experience, you get a guaranteed place. And then the rest of it is all kind of weighted against travel intentions. So like if you're signing up for the green leaderboard, you get a better weighting in the ballot than if you're taking carbon intensive travel and stuff like that all the way through. So, it's nice to see, I suppose, like the growth in that actually as well. So we've spoken a little bit about the growth in the women's field. TCR number 9 was the first year that we had the green leaderboard stuff. And it's like shot up since then. We've got nearly 50% of participants this year on the green leaderboard. So in just 4 editions, to get from much, much lower than that is great. So I think it was just over 50 at TCR number 9. And we're on for nearly 200 this year. So I think, it's not a no-fly race like the Accursed, which everyone knows is incredibly tricky to get to and from. Josh, you've got first-hand experience of that yourself. But even with a route that starts in Norway and finishes in Greece, to see so many people kind of committed to making their journeys to and from it without flying, I think is really great. So yeah, even though the field's growing, it's like a climate conscious field as well. And the idea of like that kind of sustainable race that we can have in the future is really nice and really important to us as well.
Do you see a point where it'll be no fly for TCR?
I think TCR is a slightly different beast to stuff like the Accursed. So smaller race, geographically more constrained. I think it makes more sense for something like that to be no fly. TCR at the size and the scale that it is, and I suppose that on its 12th edition with that kind of like the storied history that it has now, is something of like a bucket list race for a lot of people. So to restrict it in that way, I think doesn't feel right. But where we can encourage people who are able to travel to it overland to do so, then I think that's like the best way to work on that for now.
Well, it makes me feel a bit bad actually, because obviously I'm not on the green leaderboard, but I was looking through the list yesterday. I was like, oh God, there's so many people now. It's like, almost in the minority. So yeah, it's something I need to look into.
One of the things that really makes it not worth it, but it kind of keeps it in people's minds when applying for the green leaderboard, is that you report on it quite, am I right in saying you report on it quite separately when you're reporting during a race?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we have like so if you look at, say, like the Follow My Challenge map, there's a separate bit that you can filter for the green leaderboard. In our official race results after the race, we have a separate green leaderboard. So you might finish, say, 3rd overall, but you'll win the green leaderboard, and there is like special recognition of that as well. So definitely trying to do what we can to kind of champion the people who are able to both race really hard and travel sustainably alongside it as well.
So that probably is a good point to move on to kind of, I guess, how TCR developed over the past years and your involvement as well, because obviously Lost Dot it's been around for probably half the editions now, I guess. The early ones were obviously run by Mike Cool, but obviously when he lost his life, it was all, everyone just sort of dove in to get it going for a couple of years, and then Lost Dot has kind of come out of that. So how did you, basically, what was your introduction to the TCR, and then how did you end up being involved in the organisation side of things?
So I followed the races from afar as just like an interested party, I suppose, for a little while. I knew a couple of people who had raced it in the past as well. So friend Will Dunk had taken part in a previous edition and done really well. And seeing his photos and his descriptions and stuff had really kind of captured my imagination. And after moving from London to the Peak District, I'd worked with a few friends to set up a cycling club here, and we'd started do longer and longer rides ourselves, and then started to organise Audaxes and stuff like that. And then I actually signed up to take part in TPR number 2. So I was going to be on the start line for that, but then that was in one of the COVID affected years. So that race ended up being cancelled. But through that, I saw that Lost Dot were recruiting for someone to come in and work alongside Anna Haslock to help to organise these races. And I sort of saw myself as perhaps a bit of a left field candidate, but I thought, I'd love to do something like that. It'd be so fun. I'll regret it if I don't apply. And got the interview, and I was like, oh wow, well, I mean, like, I'll still never get it. Had the interview, and I was like, that went quite well. I might get this. And then I remember being in Reykjavik with my wife and sitting in a cafe, and the email coming through from Anna to say we'd love you to come on board. And myself and Andrew started at the start of 2022. Hannah Larbalestier started in 2023 alongside Taylor, and then Andy's come on board this year. So the team has like grown a little bit over the years, over those last 5 editions now of TCR. But I think it's small, it's sustainable, and it's a lot of fun. And feel very lucky to work with people who care so much about this race and are like careful custodians of it as well. Because I think ultimately that's really what we are, the people who are gently carrying Mike's legacy forward and making sure that this race continues to be available for so many people.
I think you're doing a great job on it. And I mean, having been seen the early ones and seen where it is now, I think, well, Mike would be very proud of it. It's definitely more organised than it was back then, I can tell you for sure. So what does the future hold for the TCR, do you think?
I think...
big question, I know, broad.
As I mentioned, we have a lot of ideas for what future editions could look like, for sure, in terms of the shape of the race. There is scope for more kind of, I suppose, like innovation within the route design, which is really fun. We definitely want to see that women's field continue to grow. We'd love for that to get to 50-50. I mean, like the day that it passes even 100 women, which was the target of the campaign last year, will be a huge moment, but certainly won't be the point that we stop with that as well. And then I think things like extending the Mike Hall bursary to more riders and making the TCR an accessible adventure to as many people as possible, so that it's only your willingness to take on this race, your bank balance, is the determining factor in whether you're there or not. I think that would be really cool. Yeah. So I think next year will be a little bit different in terms of the races overall, because it will be the first year that we have 4 races. So next year, the Accursed is coming back as well, and we're going to have the second edition of the Lost Dot 101. So in the space of 5 years, we'll have gone from 2 races to 4, and the team isn't that much bigger. So yeah, figuring out how we balance all of that is a challenge for us as a team, but one that we're excited by for sure. So might be that we need to add more team members to it to help us run these things. And so yeah, we'll see exactly how that should. But TCR specific, I think that the future routes are a closely guarded secret.
I was just going to say, if you're looking for new members of staff, considering how tightly you guard our secrets, Josh and I are not on that list.
I've just given up asking about rumours. So where do you see, obviously TCR is probably, I'd say one of the, if not the biggest event within this world of ultracycling. Alongside maybe things like the Tour de Vide, which is obviously one of the original ones, and maybe Silk Road sits up there in the more adventurous side of things as the kind of, in my opinion anyway, the 3 kind of, I guess, pinnacle events. But where do you, we had a lot of chat over, we talked on the podcast a few weeks back. There's been a lot of kind of discussion around development of sport. It's getting more, I don't know if we say elite, but I suppose it is elite, top, world-class riders are now taking part in this. We're getting sponsorship. There's kind of more on the line. Before it was just a big adventure for everyone, but now people are actually, making money from this. Where do you see that going in the future? And what do you think, where do you think TCR's place is within all of that as kind of one of the top events?
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? It's like the sport is definitely changing. It does feel a bit like we're entering the kind of era of the pro now. So people who are dedicated to this year round. So it's not just something that they train for in the background to a normal 9 to 5 that they might have and then turn up and you might win TCR. And I think those opportunities are probably fewer and far between now than they used to be. And I think that does pose some interesting challenges. One of the things that we've always prided ourselves on, the idea of a level playing field. We can't control the means that people have available to them outside of that, but it does feel like there is a definite shift. If you consider, I suppose, the last 2 winners of TCR, so Robin and then Victor, they've gone on to, I suppose, secure support from a range of different sponsors now and dedicate their lives day in, day out to being the best that they can be in this sport. And you can see that in the results that they get as a result. So I don't imagine that that's going to be something that slows down in the near future. I can see that being something where riders will be targeting these sorts of races more because they know what a platform it gives them and a chance to, I suppose, like live out their dreams effectively. For most people, the dream is just to finish the race. Like I always remember thinking back to a note that Mike wrote once, which was, if you finish, you win. For 99% of the people on the start line, that is still true. As ever, that kind of 1% kind of pushing at the edges of stuff to shift the dynamic a little bit, in good ways, in maybe less good ways, in different ways. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what that means overall for us, both as organisers and for everyone taking part as well.
I think probably when you first came in as an organisation, the criticism was the rules were kind of almost too tight with all like time penalties and things like that. But I think actually in hindsight, I mean, given when we talked about the tracker, and that was a bit of a storm in a teacup, to be honest. But half the stuff that happened there, tiny little shortcuts and things like that, that I think you've developed a really good system whereby that is almost impossible. I don't think many people realise quite the structure behind the scenes with an army of dot watchers and coordinators. Like, I probably know more than most because my mum was chief dot watcher at times. But there is a whole system in place there, which I think probably a lot of organisers could learn from. But the one thing that isn't controllable, which has obviously come up, is a doping point, which it's an awkward question that maybe people don't want to bring up, but I guess we have to talk about it at some point. Do you see a point where that could affect the TCR, and do you have any kind of plans to kind of counter that, given that there's no kind of overall governing body for this side of the sport?
Yeah, yes to both, I guess. So it's definitely something that we as a team have been speaking about a lot over the last year, particularly in the last 6 months as well, trying to think about how we start to have a really coherent approach for this sort of stuff. And so there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to figure out what that actually looks like. I think it's interesting, as we've mentioned, the sport is changing for a long time. In fact, for as long as I can remember, it's been a trust-based model that has underpinned that. But if the sport is kind of professionalizing in some way, is that sufficient anymore? I think there's a question to be answered there. And if you think about things like the rider response to the tracker, you mentioned that you thought it was a bit of a storm in a teacup, but what was really interesting is that a lot of riders are quite on the front foot with ways that they think things could be done better. And there's still a lot of appetite for that kind of integrity around stuff as well. So I feel like the general kind of feeling in the sport and the general approach is still really consistent with that kind of trust-based model, but it only takes perhaps one bad actor to do something somewhere, and that can start to cast doubt on some stuff as well. I think that if you think back to the incentives that I mentioned for riders who win big races like TCR, and these didn't used to exist in the same way. So taking Mike, when he won Trans Am or Tour Divide or something like that, there wasn't that kind of big carrot there. There wasn't the same incentive to perhaps push that a little bit harder or take a course of action which we wouldn't approve of by taking some sort of performance enhancements. So I think that does raise some interesting questions, but I think it's a really complex issue. There's a lot of different ways of approaching it. I think a lot of those ways, unfortunately, are very expensive as well.
Yeah, from what I've heard, they are.
Yeah, so if you wanted to just test the podium, for instance, at TCR, you're probably looking at 10 grand. If you wanted to do bloods and stuff like that, and that cost would have to be met somehow as well. So all of a sudden the race could start to become much more expensive for those taking part. Then you come back to the question of fairness again. Is it fair for a rider who's just scraping in as the Lanterne Rouge to be subsidising the drug testing of someone who's finishing first? And there's a lot to kind of unpack within that. So yeah, I figure that we work on for now, on a trust and justice based system. So you treat people fairly, and they treat you fairly and give events the kind of respect that they deserve. But there could easily be a situation in the future where we have something more kind of robust in place for sure. This year is the first year that we've included specific anti-doping information in our race manuals. So I think that's probably just the first step in a bit of a journey around this sort of stuff as well. We already have a rider agreement with all of the riders for the TCR. One option could be baking something into that in the future around a willingness to be tested or something like that. Not saying that you definitely would be, but if we asked you to be, you'd have to submit yourself to it. None of these are, I suppose, firm decisions. They're just things that we're thinking about. But yeah, there's a lot to like I say, a lot to unpack within all of that as well.
Yeah, it's really not simple, is it? I guess I'm sure, well, road cycling has probably been through it, and for the worst. So I guess there's a good opportunity to do it properly. And like you say, I know there's a lot of kind of concerned about it and trying to be proactive. And yeah, it's good that organisers are too, because the way I see it is that, well, you guys have the big events, so you have a lot of, I don't think power is the right word, but influence and
responsibility, maybe.
Responsibility, yeah, and trust in you as well. And I kind of feel like that if people look at you and see you're a trustworthy organisation and doing the right things for the right reasons, then that's a good reason to enter your races as a rider. And hopefully if that kind of happens, then riders will realise that actually they have the power as well to make it happen, because essentially if you don't get riders entering your races, it can't happen. It's not feasible. So I think it kind of goes both ways a bit. But yeah, I guess at some point it's probably going to have to happen one way or another, isn't it? Just because, unfortunately, human nature is what it is, and there's always one. So, yeah.
I wanted to ask, I don't want to end on that. That's all a bit serious and a bit too adult for us. I want to ask, is there anything in particular about this edition that you're looking forward to? As you know the route as it is, what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to showing a lot of riders something completely different in the journey through Norway and Sweden. I think that'll be really cool. The race has never touched those countries before, and to have such a big chunk of the start of the race there, I think will make it feel quite different, both for the people participating, for us as a team, and then folks watching along at home as well. I think that'll be really nice. Personally, I'm a huge fan of Bosnia. So we all have our little favourites in the team of places. Bosnia, Andrews, Albania. Actually, Hannah, I don't know what Hannah's favourite is. I'm going to have to ask her now. I'm sure she has one. But taking riders back to just outside Sarajevo, I'm really excited to get to that bobsled track. I think that's going to be really fun.
It's going to be some great photos, isn't there?
Yeah.
Well, from Sarajevo and well, across the whole race, but Norway, looking at some of those sections, especially when they, as you probably imagine, there are some slightly, let's say, not smooth tarmac sections in Norway. Yeah. Which is going to look spectacular, and the bobsleigh is just great. I'm kind of glad you clarified that as well, because I might get to the top of it and think, oh, Jesus, am I going down here?
Yeah. Interesting with Norway and Sweden as well, as I don't imagine many people will have raced there before. There aren't that many events there, whereas the rest of Europe's much better ridden in a racing context, at least. Oh, it's quite a leveller as well.
Yeah, it's midsummer, isn't it? So there's not going to be much in the way of darkness over certainly the first couple of days, which is going to be a pretty unique experience as well, I think.
That was our chat with David about this year's Transcontinental. In the next episode, we'll wrap up the race where Josh has won, and he can tell us all about how it went.
Well, I think that'd be wishful thinking. Didn't you just listen to the preview there? So I didn't even get mentioned. I won the bloody thing. I didn't even get mentioned in the list of winners, which is probably a sign of the times. But there we go. So we're back probably at the start of August at some point. I'm going off to Norway next week. And Becky, you doing anything exciting over the rest of the month?
I have a trip to Snowdonia with some friends and some new friends.
Yeah, well, there we go. So we'll hear all about that when we're back next time. So thanks again for listening. Thanks, Becky, as always.
Thanks, Josh. Good luck at TCR.
Cheers. And we'll see you all on the other side.